This is going to be a keynote looking at how to gain and retain your audience in 2021 with hindsight is so 2020. I love that as I love hindsight 2020. That's very cool. I like puns, so I love that already. Rich, thank you for being patient. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. I can't take any credit for that title. That was definitely a colleague of mine, but I like it too. But yeah, doing well. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It's been we've had power cuts and a few random occasions this morning, but we're nearly back on. And where are you? Are you in London? Where are you based?
I'm not. I used to live in London, but now I live out west through the Cotswolds, heading towards Wales. So out in the countryside. Okay. Nice, but it's cold.
Is it snowing? Was be my question everywhere.
Do you know what? It's just stopped about 15 minutes ago, so it's not so bad.
I'm doing like a weather report and a conference at the same time. So, without further ado, I'm going to let you crack on. So I've delayed you enough. So if you want to, yes, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. I'm just going to share my screen.
You take your time. It's all right. There's no one after you apart from lunch. So yeah, and you know it's not so over to you. I'm going to get out of the way and I'm here in the background if you need me.
Okay, good stuff. Cheers, Chris. So, yeah, hopefully everyone can see my screen. So give me a shout if not, obviously. But yeah, super happy to be here today. And thanks very much to Pocket Gamer and Chris for having us along. It's great to be here with you all. So today I'm going to talk to you about how we can take lessons from what was a pretty turbulent 2020 and build on those to make a successful 2021. And I'm going to focus on three main pillars. So one is media and mobile habits. The second is how to adapt to new revenue streams. And third is how to plan better in what is probably going to be a pretty unusual 12 months for this year as it was for last. So to get things started, yeah, my name's Rich. I head up the partnerships team at Adjust, covering the EMEA market based here in the UK. So as part of my role is I work very closely with our partners, both on the solution side, so working with some of the big agency groups across the region, as well as our technology partners. So also working closely with the likes of Facebook, Google, all of our ad networks, analytics platforms, and so forth, and ensuring that the partnership we have in place is robust so that we can help scale our mutual clients. So less about me and more about the content for today. So what are we going to cover? So first off, we're going to have a quick look back at what effect 2020 had on mobile and really how people shifted their consumption habits across this period. Second, we're going to have a look at what we can learn from these changes and which ones of these are likely to continue throughout 2021. And finally, we're going to spend some time on how to plan ahead and set your app up for success. So let's talk about the P word. So the pandemic had two major effects on mobile. It accelerated behavior shifts among users. So in 2020, apps that suited the needs of consumers in lockdown, such as video streaming, gaming, of course, shopping, they got a bump in audience numbers, whereas other apps struggled to grow and or retain their customers. It also sped up innovation, with advertisers exploring new platforms and publishers creating new products to address these shifting behavioral patterns. So as the pandemic plunged economies worldwide into these lockdowns and we had these stay-at-home orders, most consumers turned to their mobile devices to either find information, entertainment, or human connection, albeit remotely. The pandemic drove mobile consumption. So the average adult spent over 3.5 hours in mobile apps per day in 2020, which was up 25 minutes from 2019, which was a massive shift. And this wasn't just Gen Z, as we sometimes are led to believe. Millennials and baby boomers spent much more time in mobile as well. So Gen Z, millennials, and baby boomers spent 16%, 18%, and 30% more time year over year, respectively, in their most used apps. So what about some of the successful verticals within the app economy? So social media apps gained approximately 11 minutes of additional attention just from the average adult, which was more than any other activity. This was followed by streaming video, messaging, and of course, gaming. So other interesting verticals such as health and fitness, business, education, news, they all tracked upwards with increased activity since the onset of the pandemic. For example, fitness app downloads increased 58% by the end of March compared to the 2020 average. So despite some recent slowdowns, usage for these apps remain elevated compared to the pre-pandemic levels that we saw before. So one super interesting growth sector was video streaming. So all digital video services types gained, but over-the-top video grew tremendously. So premium subscriptions such as the Netflixes, Disney Plus, Hulus of the world, they've increased their viewing numbers by over 13% in 2020, which is a significantly better growth rate than was anticipated pre-pandemic. And then video streaming surged, and about 22% of time spent on OTT is on mobile devices, which is super interesting. And then also the usage of games on connected TV went up 74%. So that beat out all other forms of streaming outside of video. So what about the advertisers and the publishers? So the big increase in mobile app usage and users, however, has not led to a huge increase in advertising revenues for many of the apps. The economic crisis led to a widespread pullback in ad spending, as we all know, particularly in the early months of the pandemic. And at the same time, many of these new app users weren't eager to spend heavily in apps. So due to a drop in advertiser demand, publisher revenues have been shifting away from in-app advertising and towards purchases. So global app revenues from purchases rose over 23% year over year. So of the $50 billion generated by in-app purchases, 36 billion came from within games, which had an over 20% year-over-year increase. The growth of subscription-based apps has intensified as users look to their mobile devices for a much more broader array of activities. This is also being driven by changing user habits that point to the stickiness of subscriptions. So today, consumers are more open to sign up for subscriptions and accept hybrid models of monetization, which is often a combination of IAP and in-app advertising. Consumers have also become more comfortable buying subscriptions. So a survey by Deloitte found a number of US teens and adults who had a digital video subscription rose from 73% to 80% throughout 2020. And the biggest jump, interestingly, was among baby boomers, who went from 54% to 69% just throughout 2020, looking at subscription alone. So that's a little snapshot on what we saw last year within the app economy. So what is likely to carry over across to 2021? So let's kick things off with video streaming and OTT as a media channel in general, which by now can no longer be ignored. So a recent eMarketer report, which was titled Mobile Advertising Outlook 2021, explained how mobile is in fact the future of TV, with revenue in the video streaming segment expected to grow to over $30 billion by 2024. So what does this landscape actually look like? So consumers around the world are cutting the cord to cable TV and migrating their viewing and spending habits to connected TV. So sitting at the convergence of TV and mobile phones, connected TVs offer an app ecosystem similar to what we come to expect on mobile, meaning consumers can watch shows, play games, learn a new language. They could listen to their favorite music or stream their favorite exercise class, for example, straight from their TV. So advertisers are following suit too, with more than half of brands moving budgets to connected TV, and often at the expense of other media, particularly broadcast and cable. So the world of connected TV offers marketers a brand new and untapped advertising ecosystem, with the opportunity to build creative and custom ads like they've often never done before. But who's actually engaging with all of this content and how are they doing it? So we at Adjust actually conducted a recent research piece that showed that the younger consumers lead the pack in mobile streaming. Effectively, Gen Z and millennials are most likely to pay for streaming and on-demand entertainment, more so than any other generation, which is potentially no surprises there. But this ultimately demonstrates that the opportunity that OTT affords mobile marketers is massive. As mobile marketers tap into OTT and they push up their spending on advertising for a UA, for example, the question for this year is really how they're spending and attributing their users. So many companies are investing heavily in OTT, and rightly so, but often don't have a way of understanding what is driving the true value for their business. And that's where robust and accurate measurement is the answer and needs to be considered as a necessity as this media channel grows throughout 2021. So we touched on subscription apps a few moments ago, and we actually see apps on all verticals experimenting or moving towards a subscription revenue model throughout this year. So despite the comparatively small number of apps that are offering subscription, reports show that these account for the majority of consumer spend outside of gaming. So this is hence why we believe more and more apps will be looking to adopt or at least experiment with a subscription-based revenue model this year. And according to App Annie, over 90% of consumer spends from apps offering subscription outside of gaming. So it's a massive, massive opportunity and revenue source. And consumers actually pay for an average of 4 app subscriptions per month and spend on average over $20 on their app subscription services. But what's super important to note and to keep in mind about this is that this figure doesn't include subscriptions such as Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu's of the world, that people actually pay for outside of the 2 major app stores. Nor does it include in-app subscriptions from apps that actually fall outside the top 100. So the opportunity here is tremendous. I actually believe that more and more apps will turn to a subscription model this year, as regular and forecastable revenue proves to be a massive benefit for the brands and businesses that do that, which in effect makes subscription more important than ever, and could potentially lead to the ultimate income stream for a lot of publishers and advertisers this year and beyond. So let's plan better for 2021. So in 2020, you either got a bump in audience because your app was fit for lockdown, or you didn't and your app struggled to grow or maintain its audience. So heading into 2021, you're either focused on retention or you're trying to pivot and get your audience back. More time spent on mobile equals more apps, and marketers need to lean more on paid marketing versus organic due to this increased competition. If brands want to differentiate and become more competitive on mobile, they need to become better in their abilities to use their data. So let's look at some ways to be successful throughout 2021. User acquisition. So there's been a significant drop in organic discovery. The dominance of the big name brands and studios can hinder the entry of newcomer apps. So lean in to paid marketing. Users are also constantly switching platforms. So marketers are spending their budgets across more network partners and running more network experimentation. Diversify your partnership portfolio and reduce dependency on just one major advertising player, as you may have done throughout the previous years. You need to be where your audiences gather. Like, for example, there were fewer installs on Twitter last year, whereas like TikTok, Snap, Google search ads, there were much more throughout 2020. And of course, each social network requires a different expertise of creative, targeting, measurement. So marketers will need to grow their understanding of these different networks to really, really succeed. And as I just spoke about, look for OTT inventory that is on mobile devices, especially in those younger generations. If they're your audience, this is a great way to reach out for them. For pure mobile players, in-app OTT inventory is an extremely interesting channel to explore and add to your marketing strategy. However, I think advertisers for OTT services looking to capitalize on this growth and this new market need to be critical of which sources are actually generating lifetime value from customers. So being able to show performance and of course measure attribution is a crucial element for this area. And of course, knowing your user's journey is crucial for reducing churn, increasing customer loyalty, and delivering personalized marketing without being too creepy, of course. So retention is the new growth. It makes business sense to move to a more retention-based model, one that maximizes lifetime value through a mix of retargeting and re-engagement campaigns with a heavier focus on retaining those super important existing users. So many marketers are probably just ignoring retargeting. Only really the shopping sector really focuses heavily on retargeting efforts. And I think that needs to change somewhat for this year. So for retargeting to work, of course, there needs to be a dedicated campaign specific appeal. So without a good deal tied to the retargeting campaign, it may not work so well. Users need and expect something extra special to come back to your app. And answer questions with your data. Track in-app user activity to analyze everything from your acquired user behavior. But all of this in-depth data about your campaigns and your users allows you to optimize and of course spend budgets much more wisely, meaning you'll spend the same amount of money potentially, but could reach results which would be much higher. You could potentially have drop cost of UA. You could have more users with higher LTV scores. All of these can materialize with just better data access. For example, you could literally just send a push notification in periods where you know users are actually active in apps, and just that small little tweak will help drive users back towards your app. So 3 tricks to optimize. First off, analyze your user base to uncover the user behavior patterns and preferences. Definitely invest in acquiring valuable users to increase your ROI. Quality and quantity always go hand in hand, and double down on what's working. So in order to reduce churn, reinvest in channels that are bringing those loyal users to you. And then of course, have the most accurate visibility over your data set. So users are obviously unique and complex. So in order to reach them and get those high LTV users in your app, you need to understand their behavior. And once you're able to identify these behavioral trends that are quite specific to your app, you can really start to back the decisions that you make with the certainty from that data. The more targeted your messaging, the more targeted your results are likely to be. And then you can scale that audience and make marketing decisions with automation tools, which will ultimately save you time and make creativity your priority moving forward. So the final topic I'd like to speak about for coming into 2021 is all around automation. Work smarter and drive better results. So research conducted last year by Censuswide, which is on behalf of Adjust, polled over 100 UA managers and digital marketers about their campaign loads. It found that on average, marketers handle 19 campaigns across 14 different networks. So there's a lot of dashboards with a lot of disjointed data, which can't always be easy to tell the whole story. And when we asked what the 3 biggest pain points about the roles for these UA managers, the 3 topics that came up were merging and acting on disparate sources of data, individually updating bids and budgets, and accurate campaign management. 80% of marketers surveyed said that their company was going to increase its marketing or advertising automation budget in 2020. So that's huge, and the potential cost and time savings as a result of these can have an enormous impact on your KPIs. So take advantage of automation tools and scale fast. Let's say specific creatives or campaigns are working well. React fast and take advantage of that time saved. I.e. scale campaign budgets with optimization. You can automatically optimize your campaigns that hit your KPIs much quicker than you can do manually. Ultimately, just put time back in your diary to, of course, focus on the more strategic priorities that your app needs in order to achieve. So to sum up what we've covered today, the pandemic on mobile, it was a hell of a year, 2020, and that climate isn't going to settle down anytime soon, at least not for the first half of this year. So get yourself ready. Consumers are shifting their consumption habits across various different media channels. So take advantage of these new changes and reach these younger audiences as they attach themselves to new media channels. And retention is the new growth. Paid marketing is going to be critical to succeed in what is always a super competitive gaming market. Thanks very much.
Oh, hello. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Richard. That was great. That was great. A lot of different, got some questions. I'll try and get into a lot of different insight in there from different spaces as well, which I think is quite refreshing too, because we tend to get very into the nitty gritty of just games and just, how we can change this one figure by what percentage. And you've kind of given us a much broader, a broader look there, which I think was great. I was going to ask you a question. I mean, you talked about a lot of different, obviously I just monitor a lot of different apps. It's not just games, even though games is a huge one. Are there a lot of kind of key lessons you think that the games industry maybe needs to learn from other kind of verticals, maybe needs to look around at? Because obviously you've been doing things, I'm sure that UA managers are looking, but do you think there's some specific things we really need to look at? You mentioned a few kind of things, trends that are succeeding elsewhere.
Yeah, I think, often the case, of course, is the verticals learning off the gaming sector, because that's obviously at the forefront.
Well, that's what I mean.
So it's super interesting to flip that around the other way. And I think some of the lessons that could be learned from last year specifically, so when we're talking about the pandemic in 2020, is a lot of other verticals struggled. Like, obviously, we're in a slightly fortuitous position where gaming had a pretty okay year in the mobile space, but some of the other verticals, obviously around travel and even shopping at the start of things, really struggled. So I think there's a lot of lessons to learn with regards to keeping in the forefront of your customers and your users' minds. So how do you communicate with your users effectively if they're not regularly coming into an app where they were previously? So there's different ways where people or other verticals were using re-engagement, which was a very different strategy to just bringing people back to do a certain product. It was just to keep them active in the app throughout the year. So I think there's definitely opportunities to learn from there, but whether that will ever be the case for the gaming sector, hopefully not. But there's definitely some.
No, hopefully not. But it's good to. Things change all the time, right? You need to. So I'll touch on a couple of these. I mean, obviously one of the things you talked about was new audiences coming in and more boomers and different habits. And a question from the audience is how many of them do you think can be retained? I think that's the kind of question. Obviously, the global situation has kind of caused people to be more, that maybe weren't before looking at screens and engage in new entertainment, but fingers crossed at some point that we'll be able to go outside again. Do you think we'll retain a lot of those users?
I do, because I don't think that a lot of these new either media channels or entertainment areas that people have picked up throughout the last 12 months or so, I don't think people are just going to put them down. Like, I think people are going to share them more with their friends. People are going to engage with them more than they would have done previously, of course. Yes, we'll be allowed to go out and see people. But I think users who have lent into different channels or to different products or apps this year will likely continue to pursue those. And I think we as an industry are quite good at obviously communicating to users that we've gained to ensure that they do become sticky, they do stay with your app. So I think that will hang around.
No, well, hopefully so. You also mentioned subscriptions a number of times, and I subbed up to a million things. You kind of only see at the end of the month where all these £5 and £7 disappear out. And it's clearly very successful for in the video space, and obviously gym memberships over the years have always been the way. But I think from a games perspective, we haven't really seen, certainly not from we haven't seen a Netflix for games type experience working yet. I mean, Apple Apple obviously, came out with, I've got a service they've spent a lot of money invested in, but haven't shared really any data. Google likewise, and you've got small companies like Game Club that haven't really sort of come out and said this has been a vast success. Do you think? I guess you can have subscriptions within game, which is a different thing, but those broader kind of Netflixy type subscriptions, like pay your £5, get all the content you want, hasn't really sort of worked yet on mobile anyway.
But maybe yet is the most important word. Like, I think that the reason I wanted to talk about it a little bit today is to take these learnings from other verticals to understand, like, is there an opportunity for games to really pursue this model? I personally think yes, but it's going to be a super tricky road to go down, of course. And I think some of the changes that are coming to within the industry may lean more towards subscription based and looking at those loyal users and keeping them retained. So I definitely think there's a major opportunity for gaming within subscription. How that actually materializes yet, let's see. But we've seen such success with other verticals that it surely can be replicated.
It does seem like it must be. I mean, I see it within games on a certain level. You get, you sign up for, models that you kind of get extra gems and whatever you keep coming back, and I think that seems to work. But you've already got the user in then, right? You've already got, but that's good. There's another question here. What are the current campaign automation solutions in the market? It's a bit broad. And how do you see them evolve in 2021? I don't know if that's something you can answer or not, but it's come from the audience.
Sure, yeah, I can give it a stab. I think, there's a multitude of campaign automation solutions out there. It's about how you fuel the data within those solutions. So whether that be through your UA campaigns or your attribution provider, whatever it might be, there's a suite of tools out there. How I see it evolving, I think it's just having a broader accessibility to different networks. I think a lot of the campaign automation tools focus on a couple of the big platforms, and it'll probably evolve to focus on more and more of the more niche, ad networks, DSPs, whatever it might be, moving forward. So it's in effect making more automation at scale, because I think in some solutions today it's a little bit limited.
Fair enough. Final question I'm going to leave you with is obviously we've got, with iOS 14 coming in, there's an IDFA is going to be changes. That is going to have some impact. Like today, it's gone from interesting opportunities to the end of mobile marketing, as you know it. So I imagine that the truth lies somewhere in between. Do you think there's going to be an impact? But do you see it more about as something that's going to sort of drain some money, or is it more about moving where that spend is spent, so to speak, that marketing spend? Is that going to?
Yeah, I don't see it draining any money, to be very honest. And I think you're right. I think some developers will shift money to other platforms, at least potentially in the short term. But I lean more towards the opportunity side and not the end of the world side that some people might focus on. I think we as an industry will just have to take a step back and understand the changes that are coming, obviously, and adhere to some of the new frameworks that are going to be out there. So it's going to be interesting to potentially move a little bit more away from the user side and more towards the aggregated side. But I certainly don't see money like flittering away. I think it would just get slightly redistributed.
The world, the sky is not falling then. Fair enough.
That's no chance. Yeah.
It'd be nice to know what early spring means from a date perspective, I'm sure.
Well, that's true. We all would love to know that.
It's quite staggering, really. Everyone's waiting for this date and no one quite knows what it is. But anyway, Richard, thank you so much. Very informative, and a really good way to end the morning session. Lots of some different perspectives and a kind of broader look forward. So thank you for your time.